Hey,
Hey girl,
how
how
you
you
doing?
doing?
Finally.
I know, I'm so happy that we got to connect again.
I know. Me too, me too.
How was your day? I know that you're back.
I'm tired. I'm
Yeah.
um I hate to just jump right in this, but I'm tired. I'm exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally, just all of it. Just being back is crazy.
Yeah, how is that going? How are you guys preparing? Are you going to be online to start?
So, in the county that I'm in, the kids had the choice to do either digital or in person. And we have some kids that are still, applying for, I mean, still going into digital, but
Hmm.
teachers and, I'm a coach, we all have to go face to face. So we are starting school next Tuesday.
Wow.
Yeah. So my personal kids are actually home. They're going to be doing digital.
Hmm.
But me and my husband have to go in, and his county is all digital right now, but the teachers and everybody have to go in.
Hmm. So what are you guys doing to stay safe?
So we are doing, like, as far as we're trying to space the desks out. So if you can imagine, like, pre-K kindergarten classes, usually have tables. Now they all
Hmm.
have desks. So they
Okay.
all have desks. It's going to be very interesting. Spread out like old school, like you think about when you went to school, like it's not like together, like all the desks are in straight lines. It's like that, K-5, and trying to give them as much space as possible. No one can share supplies. Um, Teachers, well, in Georgia, we're not mandating masks, so teachers are suggested to wear masks, but most of the teachers at my school, all of them really put masks on.
Hmm.
Um, the kids are suggested to wear masks, but they don't have to. Um, so they've been doing a lot of things where you can't like do water fountains. Like we have those little they're new, like those little like water bottle fillers or whatever. Like you don't, yeah. So we have those. We got those installed. And then hand sanitizer, washing hands. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot on top of like what teachers have to normally do, like on a day to day, plus that on top of that, and try to stay healthy for their families. That's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, what are you doing? I mean, already the school year hasn't even started. You're just getting ready. So, like, what are you doing now to kind of practice self-care and take care of yourself?
So like if people follow me, like in my stories, I've been reading devotionals like every morning about anxiety because I struggle with
Yeah,
anxiety. So I've been
yeah,
reading like a devotional in the Holy Bible app about anxiety because I struggle with it so much. And this whole situation has my anxiety like through the roof. So I've
mm-hmm,
been so I've been reading like my devotional, which helps. It's so interesting. I just got like a positive like affirmation. Some of it's scripture, some of it's just positive affirmation for my desk. Um, and that helps me. And just things, just I write little notes to myself. Like post-it notes to help with that. I've been doing yoga. I've been
mm-hmm.
praying. I've been trying to like read books outside of just teaching,
Yeah,
just to kind of get my mind off of things. Like I just started The Vanishing Half, which is
mm-hmm,
supposed to be a really good book. So I just started that book, like to just take, like just to get a moment. Because
mm-hmm.
like beginning of the year is always really stressful anyway for teachers. But beginning of the year on top of all this craziness, it's really crazy. So I've been doing like, all of those things. And also like because I'm the instructional coach, and I said this before to some other teachers, like I feel like I have to have myself together so I can be able to support the teachers and their anxiety levels
Mm-hmm.
and the unknowns. Like most teachers like to know what's going to happen. Like
Yeah,
I need to know what's going to happen. I need to know what schedule. I need to know. And there's so many up in the airs that it's a struggle because it's like we have to remain faithful and rely on our faith because no one has the answers.
mm-hmm,
And so that in and of itself is stressful.
mm-hmm.
So for me, I feel like I had to take time for myself to get myself together in order to be able to be there for my teachers.
I
Yeah.
saw a question somebody asked that was a good question.
Okay.
Like, are the other teachers, your colleagues, are they also taking this time seriously?
Uh-huh. Most of them
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
Most of them are. And I can't speak for all the schools in my county, but at where I'm working, most of them are. Like when we mostly do our meetings on Zoom. Um, but like when we don't, like today we had a meeting, but we were all social distance. So in our like professional learning room, we have like I guess like 8 tables, 8 or 9 tables. Everybody
Mm,
had their own table. Everybody
mm,
had masks on. Our admin had masks on. Um, and that's how we had to do it.
mhm,
In order for us to be face to face. Like that's the
mm.
only way to be face to face is if we're gonna have masks on.
Yeah,
The part that's a little challenging is that the kids aren't mandated to wear masks, you know, and it's hard because like my kids wear masks all the time, but especially if the child's not used to wearing a mask,
mhm,
then it becomes a toy. Like my 7-year-old, 6-year-old, I keep saying she's 7, but she's 6. She wears a mask all the time, so she knows not to play with it. Like she knows you
mhm.
just leave it alone. You don't play with it. You don't touch it. But if it's something new, then the kids are gonna play with it and do all that if it's not, practice. So, we talked about that. We talked about recess. That was a whole nother thing because kids congregate at recess. Like that's a whole
Yeah,
nother issue. And then to expect like kids to wear masks and faint out. I mean, like it's this is a hard time. It's challenging,
yeah,
because
yeah,
we definitely don't want them to get hurt or because in Georgia, I mean, we hit 90 most days. So it's
yeah,
hot. So that's a
yeah.
whole other issue. So self-care is going to be a priority. Like it just is. It's going to be a priority. That's going to be number one.
Yeah, and like, what does being an instructional coach look like in this? Like, what new things are you having to bring to the table this school year?
So like the interesting thing is like when my first day, I was like, okay. And I think sometimes people try to keep with the same, like try to do the same thing that they're used to because they're trying to be able to handle emotionally COVID.
Yep,
Does that make sense? So like
yep.
they're trying to still do business as usual because they can't handle all of that over there. So let me just keep doing. And I can even say I did that. Like when I first came in, I was like, okay, I have to move spaces. Let me decorate my office, and because I had to mentally get my mind right for what is about to happen. And I think people deserve that time. They deserve that time, but you have to get to reality. And the reality is, I can't coach like I coached last year, beginning of
Yeah.
last year. Like me observing classes and giving feedback, that's out the window. Like,
Mhm,
because it's not even a normal space for me to say, okay, oh, well, you should have done small group. Well, I can't do small group. You know what I'm
mhm,
saying? Oh, I would have rather the kids collaborate and have discussion about X. Well, they can't
mhm,
collaborate. So, like, coaching for me is looking different. It's looking more like self-care. It's looking more like resiliency. It's looking more like um how are you doing in your space? What can I do to lift some of this burden that you feel right now? Do you need to talk? Do you need to vent?
mhm,
You know what I'm saying? That's more what my coaching is looking like. Of ways to engage kids socially distance. You know what I'm saying? With masks on. Like it's looking more and more like that. But for me to like expect teachers to do, it's not going to look like best practices because some of the best practices are kids collaborating together, right?
mhm,
And they're going to have a struggle to do that because they
mhm,
can't come together in a small group.
mhm.
So it's looking really different. And like I hear everybody saying, like I'm building the plan as I go. But what I'm noticing is that teachers need me more for support, more on an emotional level than ever before.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So, like, why did you like get into? We're gonna pivot a little bit.
Okay,
Education. Yeah.
why did I get into education? Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I love kids. Like I
Yeah.
love kids. I love learning and I love kids, and that's always been like my thing. It's so interesting because like I was like 12, 13, tutoring kids, like my next door neighbor's kids and stuff. Like that's just what I do, and I always knew that's what I wanted to do, was to teach and to learn, and I just thrived off of it. And the interesting thing is, I struggled as a student. Like I struggled as
Yeah.
a student, and I think that some of it too is because I struggled so much as a student. And I had some good teachers in elementary school. I didn't have any banger teachers until like fifth grade. Like, and that's was what was like a pivot for me, was in fifth grade. But because I struggled so much, I think that's what made me really want to like really go into teaching. And that's kind of where it started. And that's just always what I wanted to do. My mom is also a PE teacher. And we have teachers in my family, but yeah, that's just always what I wanted to do. It was never anything different. I love kids. It's so funny because I used to do just totally K2. And then when I moved to Georgia, I did fifth grade, and I was like, oh my God, I was so nervous to do fifth grade because they're so big. And I loved fifth grade. Like I loved fifth grade. They would laugh at me and be like, you talk to them like they in second grade though, because that's just how I talk to kids sometimes. They would laugh at me and be like, will you stop talking? I would read them books. I mean, and fifth graders are like big little kids anyway, so they like hear. But I love education. Like I do. I love public education. I really do.
That's awesome. I saw a question while you were talking,
Okay.
asking if you guys have any advisory or SEL programs that you're implementing this year.
We need to be.
Mm-hmm.
We've been having lots of conversation about that. Is how we're going to support kids in their
Yeah.
social emotional learning. Because that is not something that we've been implementing. Like our counselor, right?
Yeah.
But I do, like, we've been having conversations of how that's going to look like with teachers
Yeah.
and them implementing that and making sure that the kids are good.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, that's first and foremost before anything else. They've been home since March. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then and they were talking about that just digitally, because some of our kids are digital, implementing that in your digital teaching as well. And so we're having lots of conversation about that, because that is really important. But this is the thing. Some of the things that we're talking about implementing is things that we should have been doing anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and so although COVID-19 sucks, and although this pandemic has been awful, it's also been a huge awakening for education in a lot of different ways. And so my thing is this: yes, let's implement SEL, but once the pandemic is done, let's not stop. That needs to happen anyway. Yes, we're talking about, like anti-racism and anti-racist teaching and how that looks, but that doesn't stop. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things that this could be a pivoting point in the education where the change needs to happen anyway. So we're having these conversations. Let's not just have it just because, the pandemic is here. It's a good starting point, but let's continue. You know what I mean? To do those things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like this time period has made it extremely obvious and visible
Yeah.
what has always been required and needed for both teachers as well as the students, because that type of self-care and support is as important for teachers as it is for the kids that they teach.
Yeah, they can't go in teaching from an empty cup. And we've been saying that, but that's really true. I mean, it's true. I can't go in teaching. And the thing is that teachers also have feelings about and anxiety about COVID. Just like the kids coming in are going to have anxiety about COVID. And so we have to meet that. We have to make sure we take care of our teachers first, right? Because we have to have them put their face masks on first so that they can be there for the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, and it's so thoughtful, and I think that it's so critical, the position that you're in, to help these teachers as they come in to navigate that for the new school year with COVID.
And, it's so interesting because it's very challenging when people are like, what are we going to do for like professional learning? Like I do professional learning in my school, or I find it for, at my school. And, you know, initially when I was like, you know, first went in there, I was like, okay, yeah, we're going to do this, this, and this, right? But the professional learning really needs to look like the well-being of our teachers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because some of the things they can't even implement right now anyway.
Yeah.
The things that you would be doing for professional learning, some of it they can't implement, but we can implement how, you know, your well-being and how to keep you making sure your self-care is good so you can be there for our students, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can implement like I forgot who asked the question, but SEL, how are we going to do that? How we can make sure our kids are good?
Mm-hmm.
That needs to be the PL for the year. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Not you know, not guided reading and all. I mean, you can't even pull kids into small groups. I'm not saying that it's not important. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is number one is making sure teachers are good and students are good. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And admin goes into that too because their self-care is in the toilet. I mean, I can't even imagine being an admin right now and having to make critical decisions and making sure my staff is safe. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So they're also having long nights and having to make decisions for their school too, you know? So we all just got to make sure we're taking care of ourselves and build that community.
Yeah.
Make it
I
for
mean,
the
I'm an advocate for centering that in education, centering
yeah,
self-care for the administrators, for the teachers, and for the
yeah,
students. I mean, so we're aware that students aren't even able to learn, their brains are not functioning properly if they're under any type of emotional distress. The
right,
same thing applies to teachers, the same thing applies to administrators. So
yeah,
so pivoting the conversation in public education such that that self-care, such that that social emotional aspect is critical. You know,
mm-hmm.
it is a critical component to navigating education.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%, 100%, 100%. And you know, like my first, it's interesting. My first conference that I was a part of, and I was sweaty pits, sweaty palms, but it was a teacher self care conference,
Yeah.
and with Fran Warren. I don't know if you know her, but she had the teacher self care conference, and she
Mm-hmm.
always talks about how the teacher self care conference came about because teacher self care is in the toilet, like in the
Mm-hmm.
toilet, and it's just so important. What you were just saying, it's like it's so important for teachers to take care of themselves, um, because if they're not well and full and whole, you know, how can they really be asked to teach kids if they're not fully, you know what I'm saying, whole, and then helping kids to move through that wellness as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think, you know, teachers know that. You know, like 97% of teachers think that SEL is as important as academic learning. So, I
Yes,
mean,
of course.
teachers know that. It's just like the administration sometimes,
Yes,
and when they're getting their stuff from the board,
mm-hmm.
they haven't centered it yet. But I mean, the average teacher gets it,
They
you
do.
know, on the
They,
front lines, you know, totally understand it.
and you know, they get it and they do it anyway.
Yep,
You know what I mean? And they
yep,
do it anyway.
yep.
Because they know I can't, you know, it's kind of one of those things. You gotta take care of the kid first, his whole self first, before I'm gonna be going into deep learning into whatever, you know, talking about any type of mathematics or whatever. Like we have to hit them there first, and it needs to be something that's collective, like with the school counselors, with the teachers, with, you know what I mean, with everybody. It has to be in community with everybody, so that everyone knows that's what is expected. Like I expect you to making sure that the kids are good, right? Making
Mhm.
sure the kids are whole and well. So that's
Mhm.
it's important. And I, like you said, I think teachers know that, and teachers who resist do it anyway. They do it
Yeah,
anyway.
they do it. Yeah, that's the heart of a teacher, just moving
Yeah.
from pure love of
Hmm.
teaching of the kids, you know.
They do it anyway. They do it
Yeah.
anyway. It's
And
so true. So
so
true.
you're already starting, you're already getting ready to go back to school. So where I am, we're not headed back yet. We have a couple
Okay.
more weeks.
Hmm.
So what advice do you have for, you know, educators, whether they're teachers, administrators, counselors, for any educator heading back into to school this year?
Some advice I would give is more on the instructional coach side.
Yeah.
If you're heading face to face, you really need to make sure you're keeping yourself safe, and you're keeping the students safe, right? So even if your school doesn't have the necessary things that needs to be had, right? You need to make sure that you're trying to social distance against the kid, away
Yeah.
from the kids as much as possible. Make sure the kids are socially distanced as much as possible. Now we can't do 5 to 6 feet apart. Our classrooms aren't that big, but do what you can where you can. Because I think a lot of the hard part about teaching is that we don't feel like we're in control, right? And so try to control your space as much as possible. And as much as I love to hug a kid. I love to be able to, when they come in from the bus, when I'm doing bus duty, to give them hugs. But you have to take that time in order to keep yourself safe, to teach them different things. Like, we're going to do an air high five. We're going to do an elbow bump. You know what I mean? And try to just give them that type of stuff, so that you can really give them that routine to know that, and conversation here. To let them know that you care, but your most important thing is to keep everybody safe in our community, in our bubble. And the way I look at it is like this. You know how, like, the NBA has their little bubble, like, down in Florida, like, that's their bubble. Like, I would say something to kids like, this is our bubble. Like, this is our bubble, and we have to make sure we keep everybody in our bubble healthy and safe. That would be conversations I would have from day one. Another thing and then also thinking about how you're going to make sure that the kids are safe, as far as how are you going to use materials, how are you going to, you know what I mean? Like, they can't share materials. How are you going to do those things? So just logistically, because that's what I'm seeing right now from my teachers now, is that they're like, crap, like, I don't even know where to begin with this type of, you know what I'm saying? So, like, some of it is just logistics of it all. And then once you get that under control, that making sure that you're building community. So making sure that you're talking to your kids, making sure that the first day is about you getting to know your kids, but also sharing with them and being open with them about what's happening with COVID, how you can be safe, how we can be safe. And just showing them, like, I love y'all, but this is the way we're going to be doing high fives and this and that. And you know what I mean? And just building that community with your students. Because you're going to be in a bubble. It's going to be all about you and your students. It's going to be a bubble. But in that bubble, you have to also be safe. And that's just number one for me, is making sure that teachers are safe, because if you're not safe, you're going to get sick. And we need you to be here for us. We want to see you tomorrow. And so that's kind of some tips that I would say, just right away, just some realistic tips that I feel like teachers are having a hard time with as they enter the building.
Well, thank you so much for joining me this evening in conversation. You're doing such important, impactful, and meaningful work.
Thank you.
And I just wish you all the best, heading into the school year. And I know that all the teachers that you engage with, you'll touch them and they'll touch the kids.
I hope so. I really do. I pray for that all the time. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
All right, bye.